For decades, the galaxy had believed that humanity, confined to a single pale blue planet in a backwater system, posed no real threat, that Earth's societies were too fragmented, too internally focused, too primitive to ever influence interstellar politics. And so when the first tentative peace agreements were proposed between major alien powers, humans were largely ignored, their envoy delegations treated with polite dismissiveness, their proposals overlooked as trivial, and their technology assumed inferior. Yet beneath the calm surface of Earth's diplomatic missions, the human species have been quietly observing, studying, and learning the intricate web of alliances, rivalries, and dependencies that define galactic power, analyzing every military doctrine, economic model, and cultural bias with meticulous care. And what the galaxy did not realize was that humanity's apparent passivity was anything but indifference. For every treaty they signed, every gesture of goodwill they extended was simultaneously a test, a probe, and a way to collect critical intelligence, creating a comprehensive map of vulnerability and opportunity that only decades of patient observation could produce. And so when the first incidents of sabotage began, supply convoys mysteriously rerouted, communications networks subtly altered, minor skirmishes between minor factions neutralized with impossible precision, the alien councils dismissed them as coincidences, accidents, or internal failures, never suspecting that humans were orchestrating a far-reaching strategy that would culminate in a revelation of power so complete it would make centuries of arrogance look like folly. And as humans quietly expanded their technological capabilities, mastering propulsion systems that allowed instantaneous long-range coordination, weaponry that adapted and evolved faster than any alien countermeasure, and artificial intelligences that could anticipate tactics and diplomacy alike, they also cultivated networks of influence, gaining the loyalty of species long subjugated or overlooked by galactic authorities, offering protection, trade, and cooperation in exchange for allegiance, and all the while maintaining the appearance of peaceful cooperation, never revealing the true extent of their coordination or the depth of their planning, so that when the first major breach of peace occurred, a seemingly minor dispute at a border system that humans had been monitoring for months, the response was swift, surgical, and devastating, not through raw force but through strategic brilliance, cutting off supply lines, neutralizing superior fleets with precision strikes, and using misinformation to make alien commanders doubt the loyalty of their own allies. And as word spread across the councils that humanity had orchestrated these outcomes with uncanny foresight, panic set in. The first seeds of fear among species that had once viewed humans as inconsequential, and for every alien leader who demanded immediate retaliation, there was a growing realization that direct engagement with humans was not a simple military problem but a strategic nightmare, for humanity had spent decades learning the patterns, weaknesses, and assumptions of the galaxy's dominant powers and had prepared contingencies for every predictable move, turning what seemed like a peaceful expansion into a demonstration of superiority. And as humans revealed the first wave of their adaptive technology, fleets that could chain formation, weapons that learned from every engagement, shields that responded to energy patterns in real time, the alien species began to comprehend the depth of their miscalculation, that peace had been a convenient illusion, a mask behind which humans had perfected the art of interstellar strategy, and while many alien civilizations scrambled to respond, humans continued to execute operations that blended diplomacy, military action, and strategic influence in ways that left their adversaries baffled, leveraging intelligence gathered from decades of observation to dismantle alliances that had seemed invulnerable, turning friends into skeptics and skeptics into allies. And by the time the galaxy fully grasped the implications, humanity had already established control over critical systems, protected weaker species from exploitation, and demonstrated that the planet once thought passive and primitive was, in truth, a master strategist capable of reshaping the galactic order without ever revealing the full extent of its strength until it was unavoidable. And in this way, humans had not merely survived in a universe dominated by superior forces, but had played every player against one another with patience, cunning, and foresight, proving that true power was not in the declaration of war or the threat of violence, but in the careful orchestration of influence, innovation, and restraint, revealing to the galaxy that peace had never been humanity's weakness but humanity's greatest strategy, one that would ensure they would never again be underestimated or treated as inconsequential. And as alien leaders finally convened in emergency councils, realizing that humans had orchestrated outcomes beyond their comprehension, the first whispers of fear and respect began to spread. marking the beginning of a new era where humanity dictated terms not through arrogance but through mastery of strategy, foresight, and the quiet, inexorable application of power that had always been their true advantage. As the alien council scrambled to understand the sudden, precise collapse of their carefully maintained peace, humanity moved with a calm efficiency that belied the chaos they had engineered, their fleets and operatives operating not on impulse but on meticulously crafted strategies developed over decades of patient observation, exploiting centuries of alien overconfidence. And for every attack or diplomatic slight directed at them, humans responded not with rash aggression, but with calculated measures that turned each threat into an opportunity, using superior logistics, adaptive technology, and psychological insight to manipulate enemy decisions, creating an environment where alien leaders began to question their own intelligence, their alliances, and even the loyalty of those closest to them. While back on Earth, human leaders coordinated across political, military, and scientific sectors in unprecedented unity, blending diverse expertise to anticipate outcomes, adjust tactics in real time, and communicate strategies faster than any alien intelligence could intercept or counter. And as humans expanded their protective influence over neighboring systems, offering aid to worlds previously under alien oppression, they created a network of allies whose loyalty was earned through tangible demonstrations of capability and trust, not coercion. And this network became a force multiplier, giving humanity not just technological superiority, but the strategic advantage of numbers, coordination, and morale, as countless species who had been ignored or exploited by the galactic powers now turned to humans for guidance, protection, and partnership, thereby amplifying the effect of every human maneuver, every diplomatic overture, every calculated strike. And when humans launched the first major coordinated campaign to secure contested regions, alien commanders were stunned to find entire fleets neutralized without direct confrontation, supply chains disrupted before reinforcements could arrive, and communications networks subverted with uncanny precision, creating the impression that humans were everywhere at once, yet nowhere. And while alien societies reeled from the shock, humans continued to escalate their influence subtly, enforcing protective measures for allied worlds, redirecting aggressive fleets away from vulnerable populations, and demonstrating a moral framework that bewildered alien diplomats, because humans acted not out of fear, greed, or domination, but with a strategic purpose that combined pragmatism, empathy, and tactical genius. And as news of these actions spread, fear and respect began to intertwine across the galaxy, for the aliens realized that humanity's strength lay not only in technology or military prowess, but in foresight, adaptability, and the discipline to act only when it maximized long-term advantage. And as human fleets engaged the first significant alien counteroffensive, they employed tactics that turned conventional assumptions upside down, using environmental conditions, cultural misunderstandings, and technological vulnerabilities to neutralize superior firepower, forcing enemy commanders to retreat or face catastrophic losses. And even as humans demonstrated overwhelming effectiveness in direct confrontation, they tempered their actions with diplomacy, offering terms, incentives, and protective agreements that simultaneously expanded their influence and undermined alien confidence, creating a scenario where the galaxy was forced to recognize humanity not as a threat to be contained, but as an unpredictable arbiter of order, whose emergence challenged centuries of hierarchy and dominance. And as alien powers debated retaliatory strategies, humanity continued to act, anticipating possible responses, securing key systems, and strengthening networks of loyalty, demonstrating that their rise was no accident. That peace had been a tool, a strategic guise behind which humans had cultivated every advantage necessary to ensure that when they finally revealed their true capability, it would be decisive, irreversible, and reshaping the galactic landscape in a way that would forever alter the balance of power. And in these early campaigns, humans revealed the subtle art of restraint, the calculated use of overwhelming force only when necessary, and the moral and tactical clarity that had been honed in secrecy over generations, leaving the galaxy to realize with mounting dread that the species they had dismissed, overlooked, and mocked had not only survived but had become the ultimate architect of the next era, controlling outcomes, protecting allies, and teaching the once proud empires a lesson in humility, adaptability, and the quiet, inexorable demonstration of superior intelligence and strategy. The galaxy had never experienced a power shift executed with such precision, subtlety, and overwhelming effectiveness. And while alien leaders scrambled to respond, human strategy unfolded on multiple fronts simultaneously, with fleets positioning themselves in key systems not just to defense but to demonstrate control, while intelligence networks anticipated every potential threat, turning even the most minor skirmishes into tactical lessons that further refined human operations. And as humans engage in these campaigns, they combine the relentless efficiency of machine coordination with the unpredictable ingenuity of human creativity, producing outcomes that alien strategists could neither model nor predict. And while the galaxy's dominant powers attempted to maintain appearances of authority, the cascading failures of communication, the sudden defections of once loyal allies, and the inexplicable precision of human interventions forced councils to confront the impossible reality that Earth had mastered not just technology but the art of influence, diplomacy, and psychological warfare on a galactic scale. And behind this apparent chaos, humans maintain an unbroken chain of logic, prioritizing protection of vulnerable species, securing trade and energy routes critical to long-term stability, and exploiting weaknesses in political structures that have been built on arrogance and assumption. And as alien fleets attempted to coalesce and mount coordinated strikes, human forces executed maneuvers that turned the enemy's numbers against them, creating confusion, mistrust, and isolation, while simultaneously negotiating with subjugated species to create networks of support that provided intelligence, resources, and strategic depth. And in this environment of calculated disruption, humans demonstrated the devastating effectiveness of foresight, patience, and adaptability, revealing that every decision, every strike, every diplomatic overture had been designed to reshape the galaxy not through fear or domination alone, but through a combination of respect, influence, and inevitability. And as human commanders analyzed alien responses in real time, they refined their approaches, deploying countermeasures to anticipated retaliation before attacks could even be initiated, while simultaneously offering protections and incentives that drew more species into their orbit, turning what appeared to be a series of isolated interventions into a sweeping demonstration of power and benevolence that forced the galaxy to question not just their own assumptions but the very nature of human capability. And as a first major alien coalition convened an emergency council to counter what they still referred to as the Earth anomaly, humans had already anticipated likely discussion points, prepared targeted responses, and positioned forces to neutralize resistance, demonstrating that their rise had been planned over decades, patiently, cultivating alliances, building networks, and perfecting strategies that ensured each move strengthened their position. And as battles erupted across contested systems, human forces displayed the hallmark of their civilization: innovation in action, adaptability in combat, and moral clarity that left even the most hardened alien commanders questioning the decisions that had brought them into confrontation. And while some alien factions attempted to negotiate, humans leveraged their newfound leverage to establish terms that expanded their influence, protected weaker species, and undermined overconfidence. And as the galaxy began to grasp the scale and intention of humanity's plan, the realization dawned slowly and painfully that peace had never been naivete, containment had never been ignorance, and the quiet patience of centuries had been humanity's ultimate weapon, a force capable of not only defending itself but redefining the rules of engagement across the stars. And as human strategists continue to orchestrate movements, communications, and interventions, the dominant powers were forced to concede that their assumptions had been catastrophically flawed, that the species they had underestimated was now not merely a participant in galactic affairs but the architect of a new order, a civilization that combined intelligence, ingenuity, discipline, and principle to achieve objectives no alien council had believed possible. And in doing so, humans ensured that the galaxy would never again mistake peace for weakness, strategy for simplicity, or patience for passivity, for Earth had demonstrated that even under the guise of peaceful intent, the species could prepare, plan, and ultimately prevail in ways that left the proudest empires humbled, awed, and forever changed. With every passing cycle, humanity's influence spread like a calculated tide, quiet yet unstoppable, as fleets moved with surgical precision to secure critical star systems, protect allies, and disrupt enemy operations without unnecessary bloodshed, demonstrating that their power was as much strategic as it was technological. And while alien empires scrambled to comprehend the scope of human capability, they encountered a truth that shattered centuries of arrogance. Humans had not only anticipated their movements, but had already positioned contingencies to exploit any misstep. And in this environment, diplomacy became a weapon nearly as lethal as fleets of adaptive warships, for human negotiators blended logic, foresight, and subtle psychological pressure to turn potential adversaries into allies or neutral parties, and the alien powers, accustomed to coercion, domination, and intimidation, found themselves bewildered by the effectiveness of restraint, subtlety, and ethical leverage, unable to counter strategies that valued long-term stability over immediate conquest. And as humans continued to expand their reach, they orchestrated multi-system operations that combined rescue missions, trade agreements, intelligence sharing, and targeted interventions to protect weaker species, creating a web of loyalty and gratitude that alien empires could neither infiltrate nor undermine. And while minor skirmishes erupted across the Outer Rim, human forces turned every challenge into a demonstration of superiority, using superior tactics, adaptive technology, and psychological insight to neutralize threats while minimizing casualties, thereby amplifying their moral authority and reinforcing their reputation as both formidable and principled. And the galaxy began to whisper of Earth as a hub of strategy and innovation, a civilization whose patience and precision rendered conventional warfare obsolete, for humans anticipated, adapted, and acted in ways that consistently outmaneuvered their foes. And as major alien coalitions attempted to regroup and mount a coordinated counteroffensive, human commanders implemented deceptive maneuvers, creating false supply lines, simulated fleet movements, and feints that drew enemy forces into traps, while simultaneously reinforcing critical positions and securing the loyalty of newly allied species. And as these operations unfolded, alien leaders faced a growing realization that they were no longer dealing with a reactive opponent, but a species that dictated the tempo, location, and terms of engagement, turning centuries of assumed superiority into strategic irrelevance. And while humans demonstrated their dominance in action, they continued to employ diplomacy and negotiation to ensure long-term stability, offering aid, protection, and shared technological knowledge to species who had suffered under alien oppression, thereby expanding their influence without unnecessary conquest. And as their reputation grew, more civilizations voluntarily aligned with humanity, creating a coalition built on trust, respect, and mutual benefit, which in turn strengthened their capacity to act decisively against aggressors. And in parallel, human scientists and engineers continued to develop technologies that surpassed expectations, deploying AI-driven command systems, adaptive weaponry, and near-instantaneous communication networks that rendered conventional alien tactics obsolete. And as battles erupted across contested zones, human forces executed complex maneuvers that combined environmental advantage, cultural insight, and technological superiority, leaving alien commanders frustrated and demoralized, while human leaders monitored and refined every engagement in real time, creating an unbroken feedback loop that ensured continuous improvement and dominance. And as the galaxy watched, the realization dawned. Humans had not merely survived centuries of oversight and containment. They had perfected the art of strategic patience, transforming every perceived weakness into an opportunity, every act of deception into a lesson, and every alliance into a force multiplier. And in doing so, they had rewritten the rules of galactic engagement, demonstrating that true power was not measured by immediate victory but by foresight, adaptability, moral authority, and the relentless application of intellect and discipline. And by the time alien powers attempted to mount a full-scale offensive, they discovered that humans had already anticipated the attack, positioning fleets, allies, and contingencies in a way that ensured failure for the aggressors, leaving the galaxy to confront a new reality in which humanity was no longer the underdog but the defining force shaping interstellar politics, warfare, and order. And as humans continued to execute their plans with calm efficiency, the lessons for the galaxy were unmistakable. Never underestimate patience, never ignore intelligence, and never mistake peace for weakness, for the species that had once seemed insignificant had quietly become the architects of the new galactic hierarchy. By this stage, humanity had transformed from a quietly observed species into a decisive force that dictated the flow of events across multiple sectors, their actions coordinated with such precision that even the most complex alien coalitions found themselves reacting to moves that had already been anticipated. And while alien leaders struggled with the reality that their centuries of dominance and assumed superiority were unraveling, humans continued to exploit both technological and psychological advantages, integrating real-time intelligence from countless allied species into decision-making frameworks that allow them to strike where least expected, neutralize superior numbers without unnecessary destruction, and influence political outcomes without overt coercion. And every intervention reinforced humanity's reputation not only as formidable strategists but as moral arbiters, protecting the weak, punishing the reckless, and offering powers of cooperation for those willing to recognize reality. And in the midst of this, humans revealed innovations in starship design, energy manipulation, and battlefield tactics that defied alien conventions, including ships capable of near-instantaneous repositioning, weapons that adapted mid-combat, and AI-driven coordination systems that made entire fleets act as a single, cohesive entity. While human leaders leveraged centuries of cultural, historical, and diplomatic insight to anticipate alien decision-making, sow doubt among enemy ranks, and exploit systemic weaknesses, turning what might have been chaotic conflict into a series of highly controlled, strategic outcomes. And while alien factions attempted desperate countermeasures, humans remained several steps ahead, using misinformation, feints, and carefully crafted engagements to lure opponents into disadvantageous positions while simultaneously strengthening alliances and protecting neutral parties. And as human campaigns expanded, entire star systems once considered beyond reach were stabilized under human influence, not through conquest but through a combination of protection, negotiation, and the demonstration of irrefutable competence. And as alien empires watched, they realized that the so-called peaceful humans had never been passive, their patience a deliberate tool, their restraint a calculated strategy, and their apparent humility a mask for a species that had mastered the art of long-term planning and interstellar influence. And in the face of this alien morale collapse, leaders began to fracture internally, and entire coalitions that had seemed invincible were revealed to be brittle, overconfident, and unprepared for the subtle brilliance of human coordination. And while humans continued to act with moral clarity, they also demonstrated the ruthless efficiency of strategy perfected over generations, dismantling opposition without unnecessary loss, countering attacks before they were launched, and leveraging political, economic, and cultural tools to secure influence. And as alien societies attempted to regroup, humans had already anticipated every potential response, positioning forces, allies, and infrastructure to neutralize threats, expand protective influence, and maintain control over critical systems. And as the galaxy absorbed the reality of Earth's emergence as a dominant power, it became clear that humanity's rise had not been sudden or impulsive, but the culmination of decades of careful planning, observation, and patient execution. And while alien civilizations reel from the speed and precision of human operations, humanity's focus remained forward-looking, continuing to protect weaker species, secure stability, and ensure that no faction could exploit the chaos of their own misjudgment. And by doing so, humans demonstrated that the true measure of strength was not the ability to destroy, but the capacity to anticipate, adapt, and decisively shape outcomes across an entire galactic stage, proving definitively that peace had never been weakness, patience had never been inaction, and the quiet calculations of an underestimated species could unleash consequences far beyond the imagination of those who thought themselves secure. And as humans steadily expanded their influence, the galaxy began to understand that the containment era had ended, that the species once overlooked and dismissed had not only survived but had mastered the tools of strategy, diplomacy, and technological innovation to become the architects of a new interstellar order, ensuring that no empire, coalition, or leader would ever again underestimate the quiet patience, calculated brilliance, and unstoppable potential of humanity. As humanity's influence solidified across contested systems, the galaxy entered a period of unprecedented tension, where every decision, every deployment, and every diplomatic overture was scrutinized by species who had once dismissed Earth as insignificant, and humans, fully aware of their position, leveraged this scrutiny to maintain the initiative, orchestrating multi-layered campaigns that combined fleet maneuvers, intelligence operations, and diplomatic pressure in ways no alien power could fully comprehend or counter. And as alien leaders convened emergency councils, they discovered with growing alarm that their assumptions about human behavior were fundamentally flawed, for humans acted with patience, foresight, and moral clarity that allowed them to dictate the pace of conflict, turning even desperate counterattacks into opportunities to reinforce alliances, protect vulnerable populations, and demonstrate technological superiority and the humans' coordination of fleets. Colonies and allied species reached levels previously thought impossible, with AI-assisted planning, rapid deployment, and adaptive technology ensuring that no threat could gain an advantage, while humans simultaneously maintained an image of principled restraint, offering aid and security to worlds caught in the crossfire, thereby reinforcing their reputation as both powerful and just. And as alien fleets attempted to regroup for a decisive strike, they were met with coordinated human defenses that anticipated every maneuver, exploited environmental and tactical vulnerabilities, and forced retreat after retreat, eroding morale and creating political fractures that further weakened their cohesion. And within this unfolding scenario, humans demonstrated that their mastery was not limited to technology or military might, but extended to diplomacy, economics, and cultural influence, turning potential enemies into allies, forming neutral systems into cooperative partners, and destabilizing entrenched empires without the need for widespread destruction. And as humans continued to advance their position, they deployed strategies that emphasized anticipation over reaction, precision over brute force, and principle over opportunism, effectively rewriting the rules of interstellar engagement while maintaining a moral framework that confounded alien perception and as word spread of human victories, technological marvels, and ethical conduct. The galaxy began to recognize that Earth had not only survived centuries of containment, but had quietly become the central pivot around which the balance of power now revolved. And as humans prepared for the climactic confrontation with the largest coalition amassed against them, fleets coordinated across hundreds of systems, intelligence network predicted enemy maneuvers before they occurred, and allied species integrated seamlessly into human command structures, creating a force capable of overwhelming numbers without the chaos of disunity. And as the first engagements of this decisive campaign began, humans demonstrated the full scope of their planning, using feints, diversionary strikes, and adaptive tactics to fragment enemy forces, neutralize command nodes, and secure strategic locations while minimizing loss of life. And in the midst of battle, human leaders employed psychological insight to exploit fear, arrogance, and misinformation within alien ranks, turning hesitation into retreat and overconfidence into disaster. And by the time the coalition realized the scale of human coordination, it was too late. Earth's forces controlled the tempo, the terrain, and the alliances, forcing alien commanders into reactive positions. And as humans executed the final phases of their operation, they revealed the ultimate lesson of centuries of preparation, that patience, intelligence, unity, and moral clarity were more decisive than brute force, that a species underestimated could reshape the galaxy not through aggression alone, but through foresight, adaptability, and strategic brilliance. And as the last major battle concluded with minimal human loss but maximum impact on alien coordination and morale, the galaxy stood in awe and terror at what had been achieved. And humans, though victorious, did not revel in domination but instead solidify protection for allies, established stable governance over contested regions, and demonstrated that their power was now an enduring guarantee of security, influence, and respect, leaving alien leaders to comprehend that humanity had not merely broken containment, not merely won battles, but had rewritten the very hierarchy of the galaxy, proving beyond doubt that the quiet, patient, and underestimated species from a pale blue planet had emerged as the central arbiter of interstellar order, and that from now on, peace would no longer be assumed, and the name Earth would command both reverence and caution across the stars. With the decisive conclusion of the last major conflict, the galaxy could no longer deny the magnitude of humanity's rise, as fleets once underestimated, alliances once dismissed, and technology once considered primitive had converged into a singular demonstration of strategic brilliance, moral clarity, and unassailable capability, and alien leaders, humbled and in some cases broken, were forced to accept that their centuries of dominance had been built on flawed assumptions, that the species they had regarded as inconsequential had orchestrated a transformation so comprehensive that every system, every alliance, and every balance of power had been irrevocably altered, and humans, though victorious, exercised restraint with the same precision that had brought them to this moment, stabilizing war-torn regions, ensuring that vulnerable civilizations were protected from exploitation, and negotiating terms that reinforced long-term peace while simultaneously cementing their influence. And as human diplomats and commanders toured contested star systems, they encountered worlds that now openly aligned with Earth not out of fear but out of respect for demonstrated capability, fairness, and protection, creating a coalition of unprecedented scale that combined loyalty, gratitude, and shared interest. While alien powers struggled to reconcile their pride with a new reality that Earth dictated the pace in terms of interstellar engagement, and in private councils, the most powerful species acknowledged that any attempt to resist or undermine humanity would result not in victory but in predictable failure, as humans had anticipated every likely response, mapped every potential weakness, and built contingencies that ensured success under nearly every scenario. And as the full scope of human strategy became clear, it was apparent that their dominance was not merely military but systemic, encompassing economics, diplomacy, technology, and cultural influence, creating a galaxy in which the rules themselves had been rewritten. And while the humans' approach was decisive, it was never tyrannical, as leaders ensured that no species was subjugated without choice, that every action reinforced stability and cooperation, and that the ethical principles guiding human expansion remained intact, and as the last alien factions formally acknowledged human leadership in regional councils, humanity's reputation evolved from that of a surprising anomaly to that of the central arbiter of interstellar order, a species whose patience, intelligence, and foresight had converted containment into liberation, isolation into coordination, and skepticism into universal respect. And as humans established permanent channels of communication, defense, and governance across allied systems, the galaxy understood that the era of unpredictability and underestimated capability had ended, replaced by an era defined by the deliberate, disciplined, and moral application of power. And in this new order, humans proved that strength was not merely measured in firepower, fleets, or technology, but in the ability to anticipate, adapt, and act with foresight and principle. And as alien civilizations rebuilt, restructured, and realigned under the guidance and influence of Earth, the lesson was indelibly clear. Peace was not weakness, patience was not passivity. And the underestimated species from a small blue planet had not only survived, but had emerged as a defining force of a new galactic hierarchy, reshaping the stars in their image of intelligence, discipline, protection, and principled power, ensuring that humanity would never again be overlooked, underestimated, or ignored, and that the galaxy itself had entered an era where Earth's influence, foresight, and strategic mastery would remain the ultimate standard against which all civilizations measured themselves, marking the permanent ascendance of humanity from contained observers to conquerors in both intellect and influence, and the stars themselves would never be the same again.